has requested that I talk about, a certain kind of dynamic on set that, we tend to encounter from time to time. It's no one person, and I did want to just, convey my concerns about this behavior because, it can be distracting at work. I won't say, it's not World War III. Of course, we're always there to get our job done. We're not trying to get into drama with people. But, sometimes you'll encounter people who've been doing on-set work and acting for a long, long time, and they are very territorial about the work, and they want to let you know that they think you don't belong. It is, it's distressing, right? When people want to, just taking this brush and this Bare Minerals Prime Time Random Primer, gonna get that on our face, just wetting our brush. Just conversations that people have while waiting to go to set, ranging from the tip off for me is always when people spend a lot of time talking about the expensive, particularly European vacations they've gone on. And, the fact that they're having these conversations, just getting a bit of this in our dish, they're having these conversations in a large room, like a cafeteria, that size, but they're doing it loud enough for everyone to hear, right? So it becomes, and we're all actors, it becomes a kind of performance. Silicone sponge to get this all over our face. It becomes like, they want to make sure that everyone knows how successful, how long they've been in the game, and then they start kind of getting into coded language, talking about, quote, the good old days, meaning when there wasn't a reflection of, let's say, the culture of Europe on set, and that was the best time when, rates for commercials and rates for, different kinds of work as an actor were higher. You could afford to buy a home. You could, do all of these great things. Wow, what an interesting texture for this concealer. It doesn't say if it's silicone based, but it feels so slick and it doesn't dry down, right? This is not a jelly primer. It's not a hydro grip feel. It feels like, if I'm being honest, it feels like lube. Bare Minerals Prime Time Foundation Primer Original. Let's hope for the best. Hopefully this will not look crazy with the Il Maquillage Next Generation Full Coverage Foundation that we're going to get on our face. We've been watching tutorials by Patrick Starr and Arnell Armin where they do full coverage that is so full coverage you've never, ever thought about putting that much foundation on your face before. It isn't dripped on, but it's definitely painted on. And so we pulled out our paintbrush to do it. But back to the story. I mean, it's like when people get in your face and they're talking loudly about something, it really does seem like they want not only your attention, but they want you to kind of feel some kind of way about their words, right? It's not good enough for them to have this private conversation one-on-one. They want to make sure that you are, in a good way. Sometimes people, for example, people have been talking online about how Harrison Ford upgraded someone on a film recently, and that the, assistant directors were trying to encourage him to not upgrade the person because that would mean, an acting rate and residuals that would, impact the profits for the producers in the studio and all of that. And he insisted that it would seem more natural and more authentic to do it the way that he suggested. But that's a good kind of gossip. That's like a fun kind of story, right? It's that dinner party energy where you want people to know about something cool that happened. I was shade matched, so we'll get some generous squeezins of that in our dish. We didn't do anything really to our face, and it's looking quite pale. We've been in the sun quite a bit, but you know, there's fun gossip, there's information sharing, there's that vibe of being approachable when you're on set, right? But then there's people who want to, in a way, start talking about things that from which you're excluded, right? Just painting this on the face, getting it on there real thick. Look at that. Wham. But they want to make sure that you know that you are, you know, not in the club that they're in. The so much money, they're touring Europe regularly. They've been doing this for, you know, years and decades and all of that. And, you know, I have to confess, when they start talking about the good old days when there wasn't the kind of diverse representation that there is on set now, whether that's main cast or supporting cast or background cast, it's not so friendly, right? But people think that they're slick, right? It's slick talk. Let me say some things that exclude you, and then I'm going to bat my eyes and act like I don't know that I'm being... It's not just rude, right? The technical term when you're on set is hostile work environment. They're letting you know, and not subtly, that they don't feel like you should be there. They don't feel like you should feel welcome. And that's very different than what's happening with the hiring companies. That's very different than what's happening, you know, in castings in general, right? The majority of people are still not people of color unless it's an all or mostly ethnic cast, something like the Mayans or something on the BET channel, or, you know, certain projects that have mostly Asian main cast. There's not that many of those projects, but still, people find a way to be salty about casting calls that don't favor them. Like, oh, how many Asian fishermen are we going to have, you know, casting calls for? Where it's like, well, how many casting calls are not for Asian fishermen? So if you are that one rare thing, they will pipe up and, you know, kind of smack talk the fact that people are getting, you know, calls for that. Whereas the majority of calls are, you know, hipster or college student or businessman, or, you know, something that's maybe even not ethnic, but they feel very, this certain kind of person feels very entitled to criticize things that are not made for them, because we all know most things are made for them. And it's not cool, right? I had an experience recently. This foundation seems very pale for me. This is my summer face. I look like a ghost. But let's see if we can fix it. You know, this other set of, again, it's code language, right? We all are on the internet. We all know what QAnon says. We all know what certain, you know, sort of exciting pundits who are, shall we say, pro-Trump say, right? And I'm not even saying that these ideas or the pro-Trump stance or all of the ideas are bad, but you know when they're being peppered into, you know, we all had to endure, again, these loud, it's like a 45-minute conversation about where exactly these two folks had gone in Europe, and then another hour talking about the rewards credit cards that they had used in order to pay for the trip and get points and all this and that, and it just went on and on and on and on and on. And, you know, you're kind of trapped in the same room as these people, so you really can't say anything, although you want to. And it kind of, the conversation meandered, right? Just like the other people who kind of harked back to the good old days when basically all of the very high-paying jobs on set went to people like them, however you read like them, you know, whether that means older people, whether it means people who are not of color or LGBT or trans, or, you know what I mean? Like the good old days were good for them, not necessarily for everybody. And there's just an energy and a won't look you in the eyes, but they want to pontificate and make sure that you hear every single word of what they're saying. And this conversation then morphed into COVID. How shall I put it? The global panini is a hoax, and we should never have had preventative measures taken, you know, whether that was cloth or visits to the doctor, shall I say. I'm trying to be careful about how I say this, but, you know, we know what the SAG-AFTRA and the Producers Guild and the Directors Guild have said about, you know, how this is going to work and what are the prevention steps to reduce liability for studios and production companies and all of that. This is e.l.f. Hydrating Camo Concealer in Satin Finish. We're hoping to do something to contour this extremely pale face. But, you know, again, like, I'm not going to sit in the same room with you and engage in that conversation. People sit on their, you know, whether it's the Ben Shapiro show or Tucker Carlson, they sit there and they do all this stuff and think all these things. And then when they get to work, they are eager. The most generous thing I could say is that they're eager to share their ideas. But I don't really think that's what it is. I think that they, in this case, suddenly had access to people of color that they don't interact with in their personal lives and felt like this was a situation where they could force an argument, right? And they started using words like diversity in a negative way and welfare in a negative way. And it's like, we all know the majority of people on welfare in this country are not people of color, right? It's those states that don't make any money. West Virginia, you know, they have these very conservative congressmen that somehow never make a lot of progress financially, socially, medically, or anything else for their constituents, right? We already know, right? Liberal states like New York and California fill the tax coffers. And, you know, anyway, that's a whole other discussion. But, you know, no one wants to get drawn into, you know, sucker conversations with suckers, right? We're not at work to do that. We're not at work to discuss policy. But, you know, again, these very earnest women of color were sitting there with this, you know, young gentleman, you know, wanting to engage this conversation. And at a certain point, it was like we had main cast wandering around in the same space, and they were cracking their little jokes about, you know, how kooky and all of this. My concern wasn't necessarily for the people in the room. My concern was for the people who hired us, right? People who hired us onto the show, they need their reputation and their work protected. This is not a situation where you should be, you know, running wild and doing things to potentially negatively impact other people's work, right? Work is still slenderized by the global panini, right? It's not nearly at the levels and the amount of jobs that there were before the panini. Are we coming out of the panini? Are we still in the panini? Hard to say, right? Dr. John Campbell on YouTube suggests that let's contour that little divot above the Cupid's bow. Let's deepen that up, right? We've got high contrast foundation and contour on. We have neglected to put a lot of concealer under the eye, right? We've gotten that chocolatey color into the crease along the, we've taken the nose contour all the way up to the brow. We're looking like we're in the cast of Cats on Broadway. So from here, do we go over this very pale foundation with yet another foundation? I think that seems like the move. But do you get what I'm saying? Like, people come to work, they think they're so slick, they want to talk crazy, get into all their conspiracy theories, say provocative things to make especially people of color feel unwelcome. And then when you call them on it, they're like, what? What do you mean? I'm just talking. I'm just having my opinion. This is just, the waiting area at work. And it's like, yeah, can we remember the part where we're at work and we're not here to intimidate or make other people feel unwelcome? Revlon photo ready? Should we get into that? Maybe that's closer to the color we're looking these days. We also have this Physicians Formula Classic Tan. Maybe we'll rock with this. This is my basket of foundations, my attempt to be organized. But it was distressing to, be around people who thought they were being very clever. What they were being was very aggressive. And, again, I'm not suggesting that these people were malicious. This is probably normal dinner conversation and topics that they explore on the media that they consume, whether that's social media or traditional media. But I think that what got lost was the idea that, when you're at work, you're there to work with other people, not to have strong opinions, not to try to shut other people, quote, the hell up with your opinions, but really to, participate in the work of the show and to, it's the collective endeavor, right? And your opinions, your thoughts. Is this the right color? I don't know. Let's see. Maybe that isn't the right color. We're striking out here. Maybe we're going to have to do some sort of custom mix. We do have this Kat Von D super pale True Portrait liquid to powder foundation. Let's get that in the mix and see what we can make happen here. Things have gone left, but we're gonna try to make it work. Again, this is a discussion by request of a follower called The Kid. The collective endeavor gets lost when you have people, coming to work with an axe to grind, and they want to make other people feel unwelcome or like they shouldn't be there, or that other people have more of a legitimate, not only right to be there, but, should really be there, and that you shouldn't. And, using all these like words and discussions like welfare and minority, it's like, we know what this is about, right? In 2050, the so-called minorities are not going to be a minority anymore, right? That's what is impacting some of the recent Supreme Court decision activity, right? It's something that is making a lot of conservative people concerned, right? And, it's kind of like they're wearing a dress and the wind is blowing their skirt up, right? Their concerns are showing. The extreme measures that they're willing to take to kind of get their way and have their way. It's very obvious, what the real fears are. It's about demographics, and it's about birth rates, and who's breeding and who isn't, and who's engaging in certain, shall we say, corrective measures. But at a certain point, we're there. It's very nice. We get to see the monitors. We're there. We get to vibe with the main cast, right? I've seen people, do inappropriate things with main cast where they want to flirt with them. They're just getting past the point of being polite. They're wanting to kind of take things too far. They're wanting to, behave like, yes, we're all actors. We're all in the same union, but there is an etiquette that suggests that, there's different levels to it, right? These people talk, these people have a line, other people don't. And it's fine, right? There's a whole ecosystem. It's just like being part of the crew. You know, there's only one director. There's only a few main cast members. And if that's not you for the day, no big deal. You know, you just keep it moving, and these jobs get you through to your next audition. Um, and it's great. But, you know, just that energy of not wanting the experience to be great for other people, and that energy of really on a certain level, I finally did speak up and I said, look, hey, you know, maybe you should just turn the volume down a little bit. You know, I don't necessarily disagree with what you're saying, but you know, we're in mixed company, mixed ranks of people in here. Like, just take it easy, just out of concern for the people who actually hired us into the job. Oh, he just went, you know, if the dial had 10 on it, he went to 11. Who said it? Who disagrees with me? It's like, it doesn't matter. And I was like, you don't have to listen to me. I'm just another actor. But I'm just going to suggest that, you know, having these full-throated conversations where everyone down the hall in, you know, makeup, wardrobe, you know, cast, dressing rooms and all of that can hear you is just not, it's not necessary, and it's not the move. Like, what are you doing? He didn't want to hear it. You know, he thought he was Jesus Christ himself giving the Sermon on the Mount. Like, it's just not the case that you're going to come into an acting situation and change hearts and minds about, you know, these very basic issues that, you know, we have entire negotiated contracts and agreements to say, you know, this is how things work when we work. You as an individual are not in a position, you're not empowered to change that, no matter what your, you know, sort of wishes and desires are. That's just not you for the day. He didn't want to hear it. And you know, he was, again, because I'm a person of color, he's expecting me to be aggro and say this and that. And I was like, you know, just, hey, word to the wise. And I did speak up in this case, whereas in the past, you know, I haven't. I didn't have any idea who those people were. There were a lot more people in the room. But I do remember how it made me feel. And I don't know, you know, I feel like that was intentional. I feel like, you know, those people were trying to crap on, that'll be my cleaned up way of saying it, if not intimidate other people from, you know, being, you know, feeling fully welcome and fully focused on the job at hand, right? And if that was their purpose, they succeeded in it, and it wasn't a friendly purpose. It wasn't, in a way, fair. But, you know, that's how they feel because they've lost the exclusive privilege that they had in the past. And at this point, you know, again, demographics and hiring trends and whatever are happening in a way to let these people feel like this is an appropriate thing to do. Attack other people with code words and their, shall we say, cultural paranoia, right? The bottom line is that, you know, when we're at work, we're in other people's houses. We're their guests, right? Their policy, their decisions about hiring, their beliefs about the demographics of their show, that's their choice. It's not up to this dude to try to ruin or intimidate or any of that stuff. But, you know, he was ready to go. And it was silly, and it was distressing. It was distressing to him because I just said my piece and I walked away, and I went, you know, we have our own kind of gendered dressing rooms. You know, I can always sit and put on more makeup. You know, I'm looking at the struggle that I'm going through today, thinking about how I can fix it. Do I take this off with a beauty blender, or do I just say, hey, here's some colors that don't work for my face? Certainly I have a ton of other, what do you call it? Makeup. I had thought, you know, I keep a little list of things that I have to do. I thought I was going to do more of a try-on haul today, but all I really did was wear this really adorable halter top shirt that I thrifted in Chatsworth. And then earlier I was wearing that really just elegant, gorgeous Yves Saint Laurent sweater. Oh, so nice. Maybe, given where the sun is, given where this makeup is, I did get on this nice purple lip to bring out some of the tones in this halter top. And I did do a lot of posting, but in any case, maybe what I can do is just get through this discussion, right? In as much as this person was talking about European vacationing, travel rewards, credit cards, COVID is a hoax, minorities are on welfare, the shall we say Supreme Court medical procedure decision is right. All these things that really have nothing to do with the work of acting or the stories on these shows, my word of caution, he did not digest it very well. Damp beauty blender. Can we take this down? This is way more foundation than, even if it was the right color, it's more than I would feel comfortable having on my face. Oh no, someone sent me a message. Do I need to check that message? What was I gonna say? When I cautioned him just to say, hey, it's other people's house. They have their policy. Maybe it's better to just, chill, turn down the volume. The other person he was talking about European vacation with piped up like, oh, I think it's fine. It's like, well, it's not me, and it's not you, and it's not him, and it's not the girls you're arguing with. It's the other people who are walking to the room, making remarks about it that make me think that something could get said to the people who hire us about who are these people. And I didn't even say him, and I didn't even say them. I was just like, be grateful for the work opportunity and act like you're grateful. Stop acting like you're in your house. If you want to have a discussion about controversial topics, right? Even on YouTube, you have to be careful not to use very specific incendiary language, right? It's not like people wholesale. It's not like black people don't like, Donald Trump. It's not like people of color are against these medical procedures. It's not that. It's just the fact that when you work in production as an actor, as a, crew person or whatever, you're in someone else's house. Whatever it is that they like, whoever it is that they hire, if they are in a lifestyle that is not your favorite, it's once you took the job, it's kind of your job to go along and get along. You're not there to cause trouble. If it's not something that's endangering you or causing a hostile working environment, you need to chill out. So the beauty sponge has taken this blend of foundations down to a level where, I look kind of human again. And that's not a terrible thing. So maybe we can finish our face. But again, the way this kid got his back up, as if, no one's allowed to caution him. No one's allowed to say, just, hey, why don't you just talk to your friends, not the whole room, right? Thinking back on other people who've had, similar content for their discussions, similar volume. It was meant to be intimidating. Maybe the point is exactly that they really, this is their opportunity to thug on people that they don't spend time with socially, right? And if that's the case, again, I'm not there to cause problems. I just want to turn the heat down on the boiling pot, right? Turn the volume down on the argument. That's not appropriate for work, right? It's corporate. Hi, bye. Everyone gets along. You listen, you do what you're told, and you bounce. It's great. He didn't want to hear it. He was spoiling for a fight, right? By the time we got up to stage, I had drifted away from these people and let them do whatever they wanted in reaction to me or just going down their spiral of arguing. But this is where I got the sense that the problem wasn't his opinion or lack of care about how to express those opinions at work. It really was deeper on a not able to acknowledge social cues level, right? And in that sense, then, we can be very forgiving of that. We can just say, hey, here's someone that has some amount of challenges when it comes to, you know, being at work and being employed in a situation that requires some amount of delicacy, right? That you don't just wild out on people. You don't just stick cheek, right? This is from our friends at Daiso, the brand You Are Glam, sexy and healthy makeup in cherry red, right? It's a stick and it's for your cheek. So let's get into it. You know, we got up to stage, and when the people who manage us told us what to do, he was either so wrapped up in trying to either start something or continue something or whatever with me that he didn't listen. And it kind of got a little heated. It was like, do you need a special invitation to do what we're telling you to do? You know, I'm not necessarily a good person. I thought to myself, oh, okay, the problem is handled, right? Because your job number one is to do the job right. Job number one is not to get to work and argue, right? I'm going to risk it all and put the blush across the tip of my nose like I'm Doja Cat. This is not a technique that I favor. I like to go across the bridge of the nose. And then you want to get some on the forehead, right? Wherever the sun would hit, right? Wherever you would contour. And of course we underpainted. Then get some on the chin and maybe on the lid as well. For color, you want seamlessness and color unity. Now we have ended up getting some product on this blush stick. It seems quite fine. It's a little more muted than I would have assumed for what was promised as cherry red, right? It's a little screened down from cherry red. We still have a lot of foundation on this sponge, and look at our poor beauty blender. Oh no. Let's see, we have some other silicone sponges, but you know, when he did that, when he just sort of dismissed or ignored our supervisor, I was like, okay, cool. That's not gonna, you know, help his tenure on this particular project. So my job was handled. You know, I felt like I was being very polite, just using the silicone sponge to blend this in. It's very pigmented, much more so than I would have assumed. But you know, I felt like I handled it because the problem was this gentleman wasn't focused on the job. He was focused on arguing and whatever he had heard from certain podcasters or radio hosts. He really thought he was going to come to work and, you know, humiliate and shame people who were not like him and intimidate and all of that with his loud talk and his distressing opinions. And, you know, by simply cautioning him to just, you know, be cool. It's work. Let's not go too far with the, you know, debate team antics, because that's not what we're here for. And he took that all of the wrong way, right? Lip liner, L'Oreal Paris Brown, and it kind of messed with his head and his narrative about who he was, who I am, and how that interaction should go. And it kind of, you know, I think it emphasized how unfocused on the work he was, right? Our job is to do the job, thank our employers, support the project, the collective endeavor, get our paycheck, and go home. This is not a rally. It's not Facebook, right? If they wanted to go in the parking lot or over to McDonald's and have these discussions, that would have been more appropriate, because again, this is work. It's work in workspace about work topics, right? Watching what's going on the camera and the monitor, not arguing about, you know, policy that's been decided way in advance that allows us to even work at all. If you don't agree with the policy, you don't want to do certain health things, it's your choice, but you don't get to come to work and like talk crap about it. You know, there's certainly been protests in public, and there have been, you know, I think today people were posting asking for anonymous submissions of stories about how people have been discriminated against medically in the production world. And good luck with that, right? So hungry to be privileged in all ways. They want to have the ability to endanger other people's lives. There are a lot of really much older people that work in production on these shows. They're in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. And, you know, people who have certain political philosophies from the first have been carrying on and insisting that, you know, the rules should be different for them and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, they're not. So what you gonna do about it? You know, like you can stay home. How about that? How about you go work at a job or on a production where they don't check cards and they don't ask for certain kinds of medical treatments? Milani secret over this brown eyeliner, just stamping that in the center. You know, you're talking out of both sides of your mouth. You want to be able to reap the benefits without following policy, and then you want to get to set and be insubordinate. I don't cotton to that, and especially when you're trying to draw young women of color into pointless debates. I had to say something. I was up on my feet saying something just to slow it down before it got to be an incident, because some of these people really do want to be able to go to the powers that be and complain that they've been, you know, what did this group say? I have to find the screenshots for you. I'll put it on my community page. They want to say that they've been discriminated against. It's like, you know, you can't go abroad if you don't get the hepatitis A and B shot. And you can't go to school if you don't get measles, mumps, and rubella shot. This is Dragon Beauty, Dragon Gloss Nikita. Look how pretty. So this is me with a lot of full coverage foundation applied, blended, and taken off with a beauty blender. This is trying to get comfortable putting that much makeup on my face. You know, because that's how the beauty gurus do it. They really do get in there with, if it's not dripping on your face, it definitely is. It's definitely a full coverage, chalk-like, you know, looking at myself in the mirror and a monitor, do I look perfected? I do. Does it look nice? Kind of. It just feels like a lot, right? Just making sure that our chin contour and our jaw contour is blended. But I think we look pretty, right? I never feel like I have enough light reflected into my face, right? Did I somehow turn down the light? Right? There's more light. Move over here. Can you see me and my face better? You know, I've been messing with my setup in preparation for doing a haul, and I finally figured out zooming in onto my face. I'm sorry for having that ring light into the frame. But, you know, this doesn't look terrible. It looks very made up, right? So now it looks like the eyes need attention, right? So if we get into, you know, whatever palette is within reach, right? We've got, you know, there's a school of thought that says just put bronzer and brown liner on your eyes. Is that what we want to go for? Or do we want to just reach down and grab some kind of random palette? And random palette it is. Let's go with this Pacifica palette, Moonflower, and just do some kind of basic look. Why not? Right? We got that dark concealer in our crease. It's using some sort of flat brush, grabbing our mirror. But, you know, I hope for the kid I've done this story satisfaction because, you know, people go to work, they have an agenda. They're trying to make other people either see their point of view or, you know, it's all just a long discussion that's meant to kind of size you up and kind of put you in a defensive posture about your identity and about what you think of policy and all these kinds of things that, you know, you don't come to work for that kind of jackassery. You're just there, you know, collect your pension day and collect your coins and bounce. But, you know, baiting people in conversation is not having a friendly discussion, right? It's not like he was trying to, and his little sidekick, they weren't trying to kind of hear all stripes of opinion. It was very much, we're right, we're superior, we're privileged, we're travelers, we have credit cards all figured out. You should, you know, just sit and sup upon our wisdom, right? But if you were smart, you wouldn't be at work potentially getting into some sort of risky situation by saying incendiary things, right? Like, I don't think that kid knows enough about the show itself to know that, you know, people have lost their employment for disagreeing with policy, right? And that's not just true on that show. It's true on a lot of shows. You know, a Teamster who didn't want to wear the cloth, even in the parking lot when the block was extremely hot back in 2020. You gotta go, brother. That was it. You know the policy. You do what you're told. If you don't want to do what you're told, you can go somewhere else, right? That was the color Mercury from this palette right here. Now we're going to go into this pretty blue Luna, right? And do the outer corner with our pencil brush, right? Looking into our mirror and keeping our eye open. Thinking about that shape and that lift and drawing a lifted outer corner. You know, and if you don't want to play by the rules, maybe this isn't the job for you, right? Keeping your eye open to make sure that blue is visible above the crease and that you're building architecture that emphasizes that outer corner and that lash line. But, you know, I'm sure wherever that most recent person is, I'm sure he's thinking about me and how I piped up and got in his head. Because I know what he was doing, right? He's trying to make fools out of those girls that were trying to have an open discussion with him. But I don't think that they know enough about that rhetoric to know that that's not what that's for. It's not to, you know, have a discussion and share and ask and answer honest questions. It's a setup, right? It's a setup for people who want to humiliate you and, you know, you're the test case for how stupid your point of view or policy is, and that's just not appropriate at work. You're there to play by the rules, collect your check and move on, right? You're there to be what? Camera ready, cooperative, listen when you're directed to, you know, like, time is money. People don't have time to tell you stuff twice. They don't want to look for you. They don't want to have to get you ready. This is not a go and take your wardrobe off and flop it on the ground or on the back of a chair. Like, you just have to act like you're at work when you're at work. That means how you behave, where you are, how well you listen, how well you obey the rules. That's it. There is no other way to do it. And this kid piped up. He's like, well, I've been doing this 8 years. It's like, well, it obviously hasn't taught you anything. This is how you're behaving at this juncture. And these are the things that you want to come to work to say. No, right? You don't go to work and try to talk about Europe and try to make, we're just smoking out the lower lash line with the same blue. And look at us, we're progressing in our technique. We've actually built a lifted outer corner color, this beautiful shimmery, not glittery, but shimmery outer corner periwinkle, right? We could have used a finer tipped brush, but it's not bad. And, you know, I've been looking at these forms that you can use to kind of give your crease color shape, but I just drew it freehand. I've been watching people on TikTok do that. And then just dragging this under the lower lash line, and then we'll get a shimmer on the inner corner, inner third to half of the lid, and then on the lash line as well. I hope you can see me. I'm looking rather blown out in the monitor. I did put a kind of like a filter over one of my ring lights. Hope that's reading properly, but in any case, going in with a flat kind of packer brush, right? Doesn't matter what the brand is. I think this is a Real Techniques shading brush, right? It has like a little paddle shape. And then what will we do on the inner? I mean, here's Moonray, which is this very pale lilac. Let's try that. We didn't prime our lid with any kind of primer, but let's see if it reads on our skin, right? We're still trying to, it's like having a video game. You want to spend time learning your palettes and learning what the color payoff is on your skin tone and on your eye. Wow. That's a very surprisingly saturated pale lilac. I have to say I'm shocked. And it really does marry into that crease color as well as that outer V blue in an amazing fashion. I didn't expect that. From what it looks like in the pan, it looks like that pastel wouldn't read on me. Just hoping you can see me, and wanting to stamp that over the innermost third to half of the lid. Right, we're not cutting the crease, we're not using micellar water, we're not wanting to, you know, do all those steps. Sometimes people say take off any kind of, you know, priming concealer or primer with micellar water so that you can, you know, decrease cakiness and not have the products read, you know, like there's a lot on the skin. But look at how much foundation we piled on. I think that what we're trying to do is re-emphasize the eyes. But I'm really impressed with, this is a Pacifica palette, Moonflower, Otherworldly Eyeshadows. This is my second time getting into this palette. I'm just looking into my mirror, right? Looking at the blush tones, looking at how those blush and those lip colors are reflected in the shadow. I think that we can take a fluffy brush and blend out the edges using, unfortunately, our favorite Jeffree Star Morphe JS5 blending brush, holding it at the tip. I'm really looking at that eyeshadow and one same brush, looking at that outer corner blue and wanting to blend that edge, right? Making sure the emphasis lives. And then looking down into our mirror, making sure that the very deepest part of that crease, we kiss it, and that we make that shadow, again, trying to talk about and actually make seamlessness happen. You're not obliterating the color, but you're wanting it to be blended and lifted. And squeeze the brush and drag it under the eye. And then other side. This looks so pretty. I hope you can see how pretty this looks. Maybe my lighting setup isn't really giving you the perfect read. Maybe I should move the camera, but in any case, I'm not unhappy with that. And I feel like celebrating by taking what? My favorite eyeliner, which is the Marc Jacobs Blacker. Where are you, Marc? Don't hide from me when I need you. That's a lip liner. Where have you gone? You know, I was trying to turn my back on Marc Jacobs, but he's really that good. I know that people were saying there's going to be a new makeup drop. I don't know when. I don't know, you know, I just don't know. Here's some other Marc Jacobs liner. This is navy blue, and I think I also have a tiny black as well, right? A tiny black, a tiny blue, but I found it, the blacker. Blacker never disappoints. You don't have to sharpen this bad boy. Whenever I see it, I buy it. And I don't know that it comes in any other colors. You just twist it and it comes out. Trying to reconnect our live, right? Drawing that line and drawing it back along the lash line. I always make a longer wing than I want to, but look at this for the inner corner, right? Extending the upper lash line and then taking that black up onto the lash line. Just thickening that lash line without adding a lot of steps and a lot of product, but getting more emphasis in the middle of that, you know, pastel story. Maybe put a little on the lower lash line and waterline. Right? It can be messy. You can fix it with a flat liner brush. This liner has come out a little bit more straight. And I wonder which you prefer. This straighter line or this more lifted line, right? I feel like the straighter line, you could thicken it up, coming in toward the lashes. And just think about what effect you're trying to go for. Is it club night? Are you trying to make your eye look longer? Are you trying to make your eye look more dramatic? Right? If I corrected that line, it would be more the lower shape than the upper shape, right? If I cheated and I did a second line over here, right, just to make it symmetrical, then it almost suggests extra eyelashes, right? And that certainly harkens back to